Cubs legend David Ross was let go by the Cubs last week unexpectedly for Craig Counsell, the Cubs' new manager. It was the shocker of all shockers. It was like when Hollywood Hulk Hogan became Hollywood from the immortal Hulk Hogan and joined the NWO. It was a big deal, a chair shot over the back. And you're talking about a Cubs legend, a guy that helped the Cubs win the World Series, worked for the front office, beloved Cub, but will no longer be the manager. He spoke about that for the first time. We're going to talk about his comments and more. Thanks for hanging out with us here on the Cubs Baseball channel. If you're not part of the channel, it's easy to do. Like and subscribe. Let's talk some Cubs baseball. Gillispie, great to be joined by Chadwick, Mr. Chad Anderson. You got to use your full name when you got to use your full name in a story like this, right?
The douchiest name ever. I hate it.
I love that name. I love that name. And we're talking about the skipper of the team, David Ross, who was let go, lives in Tallahassee. And I know you guys are very familiar with the story. By now, the whole world knows. But the only newspaper that Rossi spoke to is the Tallahassee Democrat. That's in his hometown of Tallahassee, Florida. And Jed Hoyer actually flew there to break the news to him in person. And basically, he said, hey, I'm thankful for the opportunity. They said it was an emotional Ross. He talked to the paper on Thursday. He said there were a lot of people who worked really hard alongside me. I'm really thankful for the 4 years I got, coming with zero coaching experience and getting a chance to manage such a great organization that has impacted my life in great ways. He talked about all the great people there. He said that he's gotten mad time from time, but a lot to be thankful for, and basically talked about, if your boss lets you go, doesn't think you're a good manager, then he should move on. I don't fault him for that. And he basically said, I have my own thoughts and opinions that I'll keep to myself. It's hard to do that, man. It's hard to go the humble route when you got let go. And I'm sure there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that he probably feels like would have helped him win more games.
Yeah, it's a crappy, brutal situation, period. It's one of those that it comes with the territory. It's the nature of this business and the beast that it is. It just sucks all the way around, because if you're Jed Hoyer, you probably really like David Ross. And I believe that even though they may have been frustrated in how the final 2-3 weeks of the season went, that they probably were still somewhat encouraged. And we've talked about this on this channel, Mick, is we said, hey, Ross needs some credit for having this team overachieve based on our expectations at the beginning of the year. We really didn't think he would have this team as a playoff contender.
Right.
And that was more the disappointment, is that you unexpectedly were sitting in a playoff spot and then had it snatched away from you at the very end. And it's just like that bad taste in your mouth at the end of the year. And it just sucks, because I truly believe Hoyer and Ricketts, and when they made those comments about Ross at the end of the year and saying like, hey, we're not satisfied with just being in the playoff picture. But then they, reaffirmed that Ross was the guy and that they were happy with him and kind of what he had achieved this year and accomplished, even though they didn't make the playoffs. And there was just no indication that they were upset. I truly believe this was a spot where they liked the guy. They weren't necessarily upset with his managerial job. It was just one of those situations, just like Joe Madden, and that this happened 9 years ago, where the one guy you want comes available and you just got to make that really, really tough call and let someone go who you probably care about quite a bit, and especially what they meant to you as a player in the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, credit to Rossi. He's not that kind of guy from what I can tell, but he obviously had the chance if he wanted to make some backhanded comments and, kind of rip and undermine the Cubs and whatnot. But he didn't do that. Even if he thinks that, he didn't do it. And, it's just one of those things. He'll always go down as one of our favorite all-time catchers,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the
Even though
World
he's a
Series
backup.
legend. Yeah, even though he's a backup. But what he
He's
did
got to
with
be
John Lester too.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to be the most popular backup catcher that the Cubs have ever had. I mean, I can't imagine someone being more popular. How many backup catchers end up on SNL, Dancing with the Stars, ESPN, and all those things. He'll land on his feet. I'm glad that he mentioned in that got the job with zero experience, because that's the thing that bothered me the most, having spent, my life around the game. And when you push for these jobs and you work hard for them, and there's a lot of people that were more qualified than him at the time, it's tough. Now, with that said, the moment that he got the job, I think he was the best candidate for the job. And we've talked about that before, taking over for Joe Madden and basically just trying to manage the personalities that had won the World Series and see if he could get those guys back on track again and start to achieve what they should have achieved. And I feel like even with the World Series, and we didn't win forever and it was great, but I feel like they underachieved in that they could have been a group like the Houston Astros that continuously pushed for, World Series titles, and they didn't. They just kind of fell off, and then, look at where they are now. So, but I wish him the best. And the site has really been, you guys have really been divided. I'd say 85%, maybe 90% are fired up about the Craig Counsell move. People are very excited. I'd say then you probably have another 5% that are pissed off about the way that Rossi was treated, and that they thought that, that the blame could have gone on Jed Hoyer, which I agree. I think that's why Jed Hoyer had to make this move, because it would have been all of them fired if they would have had a worse year than last year, because now you got expectations.
Yeah.
And then I think there's another 5% that don't care that Ross got fired and don't care that they hired Craig Counsell, but they look at Craig Counsell's playoff record and they're like, man, this guy hasn't won anything. And, you're justifying giving him all that money. Now, at the end of the day, I think by going out there and making that move, it signifies that the Cubs are back. They're serious contenders. They went and got the best possible guy they could get to run the team. And I think that's why everyone's really excited to see what they do in the offseason.
I agree. And I don't think the Cubs, kind of just to reiterate, the Cubs weren't looking for a managerial change. The guy they wanted became available, and that's all that happened. I don't think it was, and somebody put this in an article, it wasn't as much about Ross as it was more about Counsell.
Yeah, right.
And that was the deal. And you're right, Mick. Ross is going to land on his feet. He's going to have some options. He's going to get more TV opportunities if he wants them.
Yeah.
But what he did with the Cubs, and I think other organizations are looking at the Cubs in 2023 this past summer and going, you know what? Damn, like Rossi got more out of that team. They weren't supposed to be a contender.
Right.
He had them there.
There's like 5 jobs open right now.
Right. And that's what I mean is you got other teams. I mean, the Brewers are actually looking at him. The Padres have kicked tires on Rossi.
Right.
And some others too have, kind of just questioned and said, all right, should we look at this guy? So he's going to have more opportunities. And I think that this year, even though, he's not going to call it success because they didn't make the playoffs, I think for his managerial resume and how he's perceived, other organizations are going to look at it as a success.
Our channel, the Cubs baseball channel, is brought to you by the Tennessee Smokies. They won their first championship in 45 years, and they want you to check out their team store, smokiesbaseball.com/team store. And if you're not a member of the Cubs baseball channel, join us right now. Bye.